Hey, Karen.
Hi, Cynthia. I'm going to go run and use the bathroom and so forth. Am I the
Yeah,
only
just,
one?
yeah, just
Okay,
yeah.
so
We have
far.
5 minutes. We have 5 minutes. Just relax.
Okay, cool. All
Yeah.
righty. I'm just going to leave it open like this.
Whatever you'd like to do.
I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay. 57, okay.
Well, you know what? I should be. Welcome to Coffee, Tea, and Intuition and Channeling. This is a 1 hour of open forum Q&A on anything that has to do with intuition, intention, energy, or channeling. All right. I'll give you a quick background, a quick history. And then I'll open up for, questions. If I don't see anybody with questions, I'll start telling stories. I know there's going to be questions after that. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions about that? No? All right. So quick history, quick bio. I am first generation American with both parents hailing from the island of Java in Indonesia. We are considered Dutch citizens, so they both had to immigrate to the Netherlands and then over to the United States. And this is where they met, and this is where they had me. The reason it's super important is that in Indonesia, it doesn't matter what your religion is, there's always an underlying hum of animism. So regardless of whether you're Buddhist, Hindu, Christian, there's always something about the spirit of your antiques, the spirit of spaces, the holiness or the sacredness of your car, the sacredness of your house, all these things. So this is where I was brought up. Because of that, my Sunday dinners consisted of ghost stories and ancestors. Now, it wasn't every Sunday night, but because of that, I got to work with intuition. The challenge is in Indonesia, there's when we grew up as black magic and white magic. So my family was very afraid when I said that I was interested in doing intuitive work or spiritual work. So, but it's been a fun ride. I met a teacher. I call her my Swami Mommy. I've been working with her mainly for 27 years. Yes, that makes me 53 and a half years old. I did the math. Since then, I've been teaching classes on how to, you know, just so you know, the odds of someone having intuition just like you is 1 in 68 trillion. So a lot of miscommunications happen not because we are polar opposites, or even that we have differing opinions. It's because we communicate two different ways. And if you think about it, if you're not the same person you were 5 years ago, let alone 10 years ago, you wouldn't even be able to communicate with you in that perfect way. So now that you have my history and background, what I do now is that I help women with their intuitive edge, which is how to make their intuition work at work. I also help anyone who is on the verge of breakthrough, which is you're at a place of frustration and we find practical ways to move you past that block. And then the last thing I do is I help you understand that this stuff is not scary. And I do that by making this as practical and as normal as it really is. And I do this really cool channeling of an energy called the fifth dimension, actually called Endura of the fifth dimension. And we'll talk about more about that later. So the style of my teaching is was student teacher. And it's been a super unique experience thinking about being in the United States with all these institutes and things like that. So with all that, anybody got any questions about psychic, intuition, energy, channeling? What is it? What is fear? What is any of that? Don't make me break out stories.
Okay.
Well,
you know,
oh, go ahead.
No, that's right. I don't know anybody here, so you go ahead.
That's okay. We some people know some people. Nobody knows everybody, not even me. So please, let's just go ahead and make this popcorn style. And if it gets too much, then I'll just say you. Sound good? All right.
Ready.
So let's
go ahead, Lori. I'll go next. I'll go after you, Lori.
There you go.
Okay. I'm so curious what you're experiencing when you're doing a reading. Like, what does it feel like, you know, you suddenly have a voice in your head, or what's happening for you?
It's like I'm a party girl in the middle of a really cool party. Okay, so what that means is I have about 4 different conversations going on at the same time. So if you think of yourself at a party and you're having a conversation with somebody, you're still listening to all the other things around you, yeah? Right? And then based on that, you can pull someone in and say, oh yeah, and you can either start the conversation, you know, have them help with that conversation, or you bring someone in to shift the conversation a little bit. It's the same thing with when I do a reading. When I'm doing a reading, I'm downloading information from my higher source. So that's knowing. That's how come you see me writing down. The other thing that you'll see is that I use symbology. So when I start my reading, the first thing I do is I use my body as a barometer, and I start writing down all the things that I feel. And then from there, I do a symbolic interpretation, and then I get a download. So I don't feel, that doesn't mean I lose any of my personality. I still can be cranky or whatever, but the information has no emotion to it. So it's really nice that I get to be myself, and the intuition comes visually. It can come through my hearing. It comes through symbology, so feeling, and it also comes through knowing. And it all comes in at the same time, and it just kind of marinates and pops out into information. And the more you practice, the faster the marinating happens. So I become an Instapot of information. I just cracked myself up. Does that make sense?
I don't know if this is going to work, but I just posted a picture on my YouTube channel the other day, which is what it looks like when I channel.
Mm-hmm. Oh, cool.
It's like a circle of humans all gathering, and then it's like a whole entourage of spirit, and then like a higher consciousness connecting as well. I just thought I'd share that because I'm sure it feels like that sometimes. I know it does for me.
It does. And actually it also gets to the point where it gets to the point where it's nothing, because it's everything, right? And because it's everything, it's kind of like nothing. I think that's the best way to say it. It's kind of like, you know your house so well, you know where all the switches are, you don't even have to look anymore. It's the same thing when you have your guides, your guardian angels, you have your higher self, you have symbology. It's the same thing where you just know your house that well. So does that make sense? So everybody can do readings. Everybody has intuition. Everybody is psychic. Everybody has channeled before. I promise you. It's just honing in on that little thread and then practicing that muscle.
That's what I'd like to find out is I have so much and such a long history and so much training and all this kind of stuff. I don't know what to focus on. Tarot,
Well, you know,
channeling, medium. I mean, I'm like, I go into a grocery store and come out with everybody's, and it used to really terrify me.
yeah.
And then I kind of shut it down and then I opened it back up and whoo, when I opened it back up, here came the spirits and shit everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Me and I'm like, ah.
so these days, the first thing that you actually learn is how to, I don't like using the word protect yourself, but you really do. You learn how to really check your own energy and create these great boundaries. Once you do that, then you feel free to do a bunch of other things. Because you're so sensitive, you may need to do a daily protection. You know, I'm at a point where I do my meditation, and it kind of automatically is part. Actually, it is part of my thing. So when I do my daily meditation, the first thing I say is I ask for the divine light of love and compassion, and then the divine light of perfect health and protection, and then the protection automatically comes. So it takes a little while, like everything else, right? And then it comes really fast. But once you do that, once you start protecting yourself, it doesn't matter how you start, meaning you can do tarot, you can do mediumship. It's all going to come together anyway, okay? And it comes together in a very unique way just for you to speak with your flavor on it.
That's what I think I got is I don't have anything that's specific. I got little shaman stuff here, tarot, astrology, channeling. I got it all over the place. I'm trying to figure out what to focus on.
There's nothing to figure out, really. It's kind of like, look, you're in a playground, right?
Mm-hmm.
All that stuff is your playground. You're just going to have fun with it. Pick up whatever you want. You're going to find out that you have a favorite toy, right? That's what usually happens. That's the one you work with. Everything else will start coming in. Okay. So when I started with basically intuition stuff. And then I found out the difference between psychic and intuitive. Then I didn't trust any of it. So then I went into handwriting analysis. Then I found out that I wasn't even looking at the paper anymore because I was just doing readings.
Mm-hmm.
So then I tossed the handwriting analysis, right? Why fake it? And so everything kind of morphed into my certain style of reading. Everybody's training is similar. It's what you do with it and you make it your own. So you have all the tools. Now it's just about smushing it together.
Yeah, it's like I got TMI, you know.
Yeah. But I would really, for you today, the beginning is for protection, right? So that you know which energy is yours and which energy is not. We actually did a really good meditation today on the chakras. And we talked about how you expand your chakras, expand your energy, and then you close it down. So it's not closed, but it's just yours.
It's not as open. Yeah.
Got it? Any other questions? Anybody else have any questions? Go ahead, Diane.
Can you explain what the difference is into intuition and psychic?
I was hoping someone would ask that. Yes. So I like to think of, so intuition is from the emotion, it's from your emotional body. So an intuitive response is emotion. It's energy based, it's emotionally based, and experience based. Here's what I mean. Kids are super, super sensitive, and they can pick up whatever it is. So they know if you're having a bad day, even though you're putting on your best face, right? But they don't, and that's because they're intuitive. They can feel it, but they don't know grief until they experience it. So there's no name to it, so they can't experience it intuitively. Does that make sense? Okay. Psychic is pure information. So when people tell me about the psychic experience in my belief system, the psychic experience is like having a whole snapshot of information at once. So as soon as it drags on and on and on and on, I'm like, oh, now we're dealing with intuition. Because intuition is symbology and all these other things, interpretation. But psychic, the simplest way to think of a psychic response is if someone asks, am I going to have a boy or a girl? Am I what else do they usually say? Boy or girl? Am I going to get a job? That kind of thing. Those are psychic questions. The emotions around it, that's intuitive. So the two
And
work.
so you're like kind of like, I guess, what Lori's question. Then, so when you're in the psychic kind of vein or channel, when someone asks you that, then you're like, because people always say spirit's telling me. So is it literally a voice like saying it in your head, or is it just something that you're feeling and you're deciding this is what I need to say? It comes out of you no matter what.
It's different for everybody because information, right? Remember 1 in 68 trillion, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not joking. It is that vast. But I will tell you that that for me, a psychic thing is it's that fast, and I either see it as a snapshot or I hear it, and there's no BS with it, right? So if someone says, when am I going to get a job? Then it's going to be October of this year. And then you'll say, well, what do I need to do? Then it becomes intuitive because you have to talk about all the emotions to get you set up for that place, right?
Okay.
The way of aligning it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the other thing about psychic is there really is no emotion around it. You can be a human being, right, and have emotions, but the actual psychic information is not emotional.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have a question? Oh my gosh.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So, you channel the fifth dimension, which is so interesting because that's a very specific vibrational access point. You know what I mean? It's very specific. I can only imagine. I did a meditation once. It was supposed to be a release anxiety, and what ended up happening is I traveled back to a time where my soul did not identify with an identity, and for that moment, it was just empty, with no thoughts, and also a little sense of curiosity. I had never been so detached from a human ego before, mentally, the chatter. So I imagine the fifth dimension is so straightforward because they don't have, would you describe it as maybe the ego is not present, or what exactly is the characteristic of the fifth dimension versus channeling a spirit on the other side? Because yeah, you know what I mean? Because you're an expert in that. I'm so curious.
So the fifth dimension is kind of like, all right, let's, I know I'm recording, but I'll be transparent. I'm a kid of the 80s, so I did a little cocaine. So when you do cocaine, your energy is elevated, but you're feeling good, but you're not out of your mind. So that is really recreational type of cocaine. So if you haven't done coke before, basically what's happening is that your energy is elevated, but you can still function absolutely wonderfully, right? So when I'm channeling the fifth dimension, my energy is elevated and there's a complete detachment. Here's the cool thing. Because I am part of the fifth dimension, what happens is that the energy comes through. I feel like I'm in the Star Trek, beam me up Scotty thing, because the energy just kind of does the download, basically like your picture, right? A lot like your picture. And then what happens is that the energy comes through, but the human part of me gets to ask questions out of curiosity, or out of, I still get to have, I don't get to have feelings around it. I get to have curiosity and I get to ask questions around it. So that's what it is. It is pure information. There's absolutely there's no personality in the fifth dimension. It is Google without anything else, right? That's exactly what it is. So, but in my body, that's what it feels like. You're energetically a higher vibration. You're a little bit like this, which is why I love being in it, because when I'm done, I'm jazzed. I'm just jazzed, right? So it's like being on drugs without the side effects. I tell people that all the time.
Now, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
In regarding to the different dimensions, what I've done at different times is I've moved a tricycle, spontaneously healed my hand, just did some things that weren't, but I didn't know how to access it again. And it's kind of scary, when you go like that and the tricycle goes flying 15 feet and you go, what the hell? How did that happen? And then, but is that come then from different dimensions? Because we were talking one time about being multi. Is that where that's coming from? Or I wish I could, like, you know, when I had my knee surgery, just spontaneously heal my knee.
Mhm.
No, it happened when I would burn myself making jam. And I turned around and looked at it and went,
When it was gone. So I wouldn't consider that fifth dimension, because fifth dimension it's more about information than it is about, what is that called? It's not about instant like things that can happen here in the third dimension. It's more about information. So it's about the energy of everything that's going on. Okay, that's fifth dimension. If I were to say it was any other dimension, and this is just a guess, so this is a good question for the fifth dimension, is what I would consider it like a manipulation of the fourth dimension, where you can manipulate time. In fifth dimension, there is no time. Okay? But I do believe in rapid healing, and I do believe it is pure energy. It is
Yes.
pure energy.
I burned myself channeling energy. I burned the back of my neck, you know. But what that makes me feel is insecure and unruly because I don't have it defined, and it enters and comes in and out of my body just however it wants. You
Yeah,
know?
I mean, it's a little scary. And so here's what I'll tell you. And I'm sure anybody else who's done any type of readings has this, and so I'd love your feedback, Tana, is when you're in the beginning, and it's just like everything else in life, you need some kind of proof. And so I wouldn't be surprised if that's your proof that something different is happening. So I would just suggest that if you're going to do this, first of all, you're going to work on your boundaries. And the second thing is to say, you know, I don't need that. I don't need such harsh proof.
Mhm.
All
I
right.
don't need to bend spoons anymore.
You don't need to do that. That's, you know, which is a great thing in the 70s, wasn't it?
Well, I mean, that's what we were doing. I would just,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. So, you know, and doing all that King Ted stuff. But at the same time, that's what we need proof. So there's a lot of people. I mean, think about all the people in your life who have everything going for them and they have a hard time with one thing, right? What it is really is it's about it's that inconsistency with when it comes to everything else. So it's the same when that's the proof. So like for me, I would say my thought is I have to work hard to do this because I need people to believe me. That's not true. All I need to do is I need to be me and people will believe me because I'm just being me. See what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So it's the same thing for you. So I mean, Tana, have you had something similar like that where as you were learning, things would happen because you had to have proof?
I'm obsessed with proof.
There you go.
The reason why is because when my psychic ability started, it was a result of a near-death experience, which was a drug overdose. So I had no idea what was real and what wasn't.
So she knows the whole Coke thing.
Don't worry
I've had
about
my
that.
history too.
Don't worry about that. I had
Just kidding.
3 years deep.
Woo!
Don't worry
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
No, but well, I mean, a lot of traditions and religions use any kind of, you know, Native Americans, peyote, you know, the implications can be spun however you want. But my point is that I had a near-death experience that resulted in it. And after that, I was really concerned with what is real and what wasn't, because I was pretty sure that it was quite possible that I was just hallucinating or making it up. So I started using my abilities in a way that I could double check. Now, I didn't want to get too attached to the validation, because what you have to understand is, like, you could say something or know something that's totally true and never have access to the proof. You know what I mean? And just because you don't have access to, like, let's say you said something to someone at a bus stop. If you don't ever see him again, you actually don't have the proof, but it could have been 100% correct. And you're going on in your life thinking, oh, I was wrong. Why did I say that? And you'll never know. So you have to detach from it. But at the same time, I did seek it out. And I felt that the best way to do that was to always teach myself and teach my students to go into a safe space where they can share their abilities and practice. Like, that's why I teach readings, right? Because you have a person in front of you that can say, oh, that sits with me this way, or that speaks to me this way. And better yet, exchange numbers, have them call you 2 weeks later when it makes sense to them, you know? And so that's how I love proof, not being attached to it, but seeking it, because I always wanted to calibrate. Does that make
Right.
sense?
So you're going to find that most people, especially readers,
Thank you.
they are skeptical themselves.
Yeah.
So everybody needs to have their thing. The other thing that Tana brought up that I had forgotten is that most people's intuitive and psychic abilities, they do kick in after trauma. Mine actually kicked in. And like I said, I had the opportunity and the ability, but I didn't actually pursue it until after my father died. So it was a big thing. So
Well, I got almost beat to death when I was 4 for predicting somebody's death. And I mean, I was in awe. So I had a very traumatic experience.
exactly. And so the thing is that for me, I come from a long line of people with black magic, white magic. So the fear that I have is generations old, right? That I'm really lucky to be American because I got to do this, right?
Mhm.
So is that good, or does anybody have any questions around that?
Thank you. Thanks.
Sure.
Pretty normal.
Anybody else? Anybody else?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Also around channeling. I know you channel the fifth dimension. I know Tana channels
Mm-hmm.
a being or a whatever, or a bunch of beings. That, like, before when you were talking about the difference between intuition and psychic, you said something about channeling. Like, could you explain the different types of channeling? And you said everybody can get in touch with their psychic abilities. Can
Yeah.
everybody channel like you and Tana do?
Yes, that's absolutely correct. So first thing that needs to happen is you have to believe it, right? Because if not, you're probably going to think that you're going to need to be 5150, which has happened, right? And just so you know, I am partners with emergency nurse, so we talk about this a lot. So that's just an aside. Psychic abilities is thinking about somebody and all of a sudden they call you on the phone, or thinking about somebody and all of a sudden they come. Everyone has had that in their life. It's just happened. And that's the proof that happens. It's not a coincidence, right? It usually happens when you're very open. So if you think about it, a lot of deja vu, a lot of psychic things probably happen to everyone here in their teen years, right? And so it's because you're super open and you're just, your body's doing different things, your mind is doing different things, all your hormones are raging, you're so open to everything, right? So there's that. So that's the psychic ability. The intuitive ability is to be able to hear the message in between the words, to be able to feel what someone's feeling without them expressing it, to see things that are not in our, I won't say in our dimension, because that to me is a little bit different, but to see things that are not exactly there. So to me, that's like symbology or using an inner sight. A lot of times some people can smell things, but I attribute that more to mediumship, right? Doesn't mean it has to be, that's just the way I attributed it. And it's always got an emotional kick to it. So that's the difference between psychic and intuitive. Now, when you're channeling, what happens is that you are in a very, I call it open, but you're actually super vulnerable because you're just hanging out and you're like, whatever happens, I totally trust. And the hardest part of channeling is to trust so much that you're going to let whatever information come through, and that you could sound like an ass, right? And I don't know, you could do scat, boop-a-dee-bop-boop-a-doo, you just don't know, right? And you just have to trust that this information comes through. Once this happens, that's the other interesting about channeling, is that you don't get the information about the channeling until after you're channeling, right? So you're not going to do, it's really funny, I've yet to see someone do intuitive work and say, okay, now I'm going to channel this. It's about being open, letting it come through more than once. So you actually have to be open at least twice, and then the information comes through and you get to hear this. I'm a little bit lucky because my Swami Mommy heard about it in her meditation. And so I actually got to experience it in a way protected way. So I'm really, really fortunate that way. So that's the difference. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you may not be channeling the fifth dimension if Connie hadn't said, okay, you're doing this, and you were with her, correct?
I would have been channeling. I wouldn't have opened myself up to the opportunity to channel the fifth dimension if she hadn't provided the thought that that could actually happen. I've
Okay.
channeled before. I don't know if it was the fifth dimension or not. It feels like it was the same, but it's kind of one of those things where you're talking and then all of a sudden something happens and you're there and you're not there and this great information comes out. You know, that's how I know everyone has channeled before, because I know I'm not the only person that's done that.
Right. Like you're just saying this and you don't know where it came from.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh my God, it's so beautiful and it's not me, but I'm going to take credit for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of my favorite things to do.
So aren't there different kinds of channeling though? Because people do that. And then, you know, like what you and Tana do, is that considered like full body channeling? What you guys do?
You know what's really funny? The only thing I ever hear is channeling and clear channeling.
Oh,
And
right.
Based
Right.
on clear channeling, and the only thing that means clear channeling is that you're just getting this huge download of information. Where you're getting it from and how it gets processed, everybody's different, but I have yet to hear someone say that I am a blah, blah, blah channel. You know what I mean?
Okay.
That doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. I just haven't heard it. People will just say, I'm a clear channel, and I channel in, and they have a name, or they have an energy, or something like that.
Can I share too for just a second? So for me, when I channel, when I do my readings, I'm usually never channeling. And the way I feel that, how I define it is spirit is either talking to me or I'm looking at the psychic information, receiving it and gathering my thoughts and presenting them. I'm always a part. Tana is a part of the conversation. Tana is delivering the information. They're speaking to Tana so that Tana can give a message to someone else. When I have channeled like Johanna from the Palladian star system or whatever, right, about like when I help people with like contact protocol and stuff, I almost feel like there's this little green room that I go sit in.
Yeah.
And I kind of stare at a wall. I'm not even present with you guys. I'm in another room. I can hear through the walls. So I'm sort of there, but I'm not present like they're talking to me or I'm talking to you. I'm not present either way. I'm sort of in a green room. And so the communication that happens is directly, I'm cut out completely of that process. And that's how I usually define the two separate ways. And honestly, I don't channel removed very often unless I know what it is I'm channeling. I'm in a safe space. I know the people and there's some level of safety. And I think that is important. Not that everything is dangerous. It's just that for your best energetic scenarios, you want to have a method that works for you, I think.
Right.
I don't know. Does that make sense, Cynthia?
Yeah, it totally does. The difference between Tana and me is a lot of people say that they do go to sleep, or what Tana said is that they go into a green room. I'm super lucky. I get to be a part of the conversation. So it's almost a little bit schizophrenic because I have, when I'm in the fifth dimension, I'm actually talking to the fifth dimension while my mouth is doing something else. So it's like a dream come true for me. Right. So yeah, so that's what that is. And that's the difference.
I got it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Have you ever I mean, so fifth dimension, like you said, it seems like your wheelhouse, but have you ever been able, or other, dimensions, or, your spirits and whoever come through in the channeling, like for that Blue Soul Circle group, for example, like you saw, like Anthony, he's full body and literally becomes the spirits that come in.
Yeah, he's a trip, man.
Yeah.
He is an absolute trip. I have not, and I really don't believe that's ever going to happen to me. And the reason why is that as soon as I call upon the fifth dimension, first of all, that's what I do. I call upon the fifth dimension, and so I already have that connection, right? So it's not like when I don't do fifth dimension that I'm still not a piece of the fifth dimension. So really, it's almost like going to family reunion once I'm in fifth dimension, right? I don't stop being a Varkavisser, but I get to hang out with all the other Varkavissers. So the thing for me is that as soon as I call upon the fifth dimension, the energy is in and it's locked in solid, just like, I'm telling you, it's just like Star Trek. And I don't see it, but I really do feel like that energy. It's not even a film, but it's just an energy, and I'm locked in. And so there's really no space for anything else to come in but that information. So I feel very, very safe.
Can I ask about like stepping out of your body? Now there's a medium and channeling and stuff, but there's times when I've stepped out of my body.
Like an out-of-body experience?
Yeah, and something's come through, and I didn't like it very much.
Let me ask you a couple things. When these experiences happen, so I think the safest way to have this conversation with you is, has any of this stuff happened recently?
No.
Okay, so the reason I'm asking is that we, and you know, Tana and I and all other channels have had the privilege of getting the experience and the cumulative knowledge from the past 70s, was that 40 years? From the past 40 years. So when you talked about your out of body experience, I really don't think it's any different than what's been happening with you know, us in the channeling.
Okay.
But because of the vocabulary that we had in the 70s, it's much different than the vocabulary that we have now.
Or in the
So,
80s, yeah. Okay.
So what I would recommend is that you go into groups, or you go get a few readings or some healings, and that will help you change your vocabulary.
Yeah, and then it's not so, it's more like, well, I just stepped aside and let something come.
Yeah, right. Because, you know, you've had, you know, you remind me of when I had knee surgery, right? I had knee surgery. It was ACL repair. It was really painful. And then I was afraid to use my knee, take advantage of my knee,
Bingo.
right?
Yeah,
Because
bingo.
of the pain. And so it took me a long time to get back to use my knee. And now I use my knee more than I did before I had the surgery, right? So it's the same thing with where you are now. You're at a place where it's like, yeah, it's a little bit scary.
Kind of, yeah, and I've got some prejudices going on. And
That's
you know,
okay.
oh, make sure you always have your cord hooked up so you can get back into your body and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and actually cord still, you know, it still applies.
silver,
But we don't
yeah.
use that word anymore, right? We just don't use that word this day anymore. That's all.
Whoa, rusty, huh?
Yeah, no, this is great.
Well, I got to get tuned up, huh? Thanks.
Yeah, it's up to you. Totally up to you.
Oh, no, I got to totally get tuned up.
Does anybody have any other questions about fifth dimension or channeling? No? Does anybody have questions about their psychic and intuitive abilities? Or what's the difference? Or how freaky is that? Or, you know, I have entities come visit me at night. That happens.
Oh,
Sid.
yeah.
Or, okay, anything. This is open. Go ahead,
Sid.
Senator.
I just had a question about something you said earlier about psychic, when you said you think of someone and then you run into them.
Yeah.
It's a chicken or egg question. Which is it? Is it because they're near you that you think of them, or are they near you because you thought of them?
You know what? My Swami mommy and I talk about this all the time. She says to me, she says, did I create you in my imagination and you are a part of my story? Or did you create me out of what you wanted and I became a part of your story? It's a really good question. I believe that it's like this. It's like my favorite thing that my Swami mommy used to do, is that we are all connected in a certain way, right? And so here's how this works. So you're connected to someone in a certain way. And as soon as one of you thinks about the other one, it doesn't matter who's first. Here you go. There's the connection right there, right? Two cans in a string. Once this connection is broken, right, then it's no longer there. Does that make sense? It doesn't mean you're not connected. You're not connected energetically. You're not tied in like this, psychically, right? So that's what I'm saying. So when you say chicken or egg, it's kind of like you both have to be in that same spot, right? So now, having said that, that doesn't mean that, you know, someone you haven't talked to in 30 years doesn't all of a sudden hear your zing, right? And then calls you up out of the blue, or you call them up out of the blue. It's just that you don't have the tight bond. Does that make sense? So we're all cans with strings. And as soon as it's taut and pinged, right? It doesn't really matter. You can't really tell, I think is the best way to say. You can't really tell who thought of whom first, but you know that it happened at the same time, and that's the zing. Make sense? Yeah. It's a good question. I love that question. My teacher and I talk about that all the time. Go round and round.
I'm guessing it's similar. It probably is the same idea because what I have pretty often, just because I'm pretty active, like with social media and stuff, like as I'm posting something, like I like know who will be the first people to comment, and they
Yes.
usually always are.
Yeah,
It's
it is.
Yeah.
It's because you're tied in with them, right? You're tied in with
Mhm.
them and you know. And it's
Mhm.
really funny just because you know, I have clients that I don't see very often. It doesn't mean that I don't think of them and then all of a sudden they call. Or that I have, you know, these cousins I hadn't seen in years that all of a sudden I don't think of them and then they call. It's one of those things where it's just one of those, you know, it's like a direct connect. I actually like thinking of it as direct connect. You know, what were those Nextels? Is anyone old enough for Nextels? Spencer, you're probably not, but you know, Nextel is like walkie-talkie.
Can I ask you a question, Cynthia? So a lot of times when I look at that, because I work with like future predicting so much, right? That's like my area of specialty is I really feel the gravity and the echo of what's to come in the future, and I can sense it up until. So the way I would have almost answered that question based on what I, you know, what I do is like that future moment echoes back and can be detected in so many ways, psychically, you know, by thought, psychically by, you know, arranging certain things that happen in succession that create the future outcome. So for you psychically, how do you put in like this chicken or egg question? How do you as a psychic from your perspective feel that the future echo, if you will, or what will come to be, what will be the choices made? Do you feel that plays a part in it like I do, or how do you coincide the future aspect of it?
That's actually a really good question. It's a super good question because you work on the psychic side of it and I work on the intuitive side of it, right? Which is the psychic side is this is where it's going to happen. Here's your future event. The intuitive side is here are all the emotional things that you want to go through to prepare yourself. So for law of attraction, you get to this event, right? So for me, a psychic thought, remember, we're all tied, and that even means future and past. So when you're doing this thing and you have that psychic ping, what you're doing is that you're kind of taking that string and bringing it taut. So it's not that it doesn't happen, it just kind of goes loosey-goosey. So an example is someone says, when am I going to meet Mr. Right? I love this question because it cracks me up every time, right? You know, I don't know if that's for you, Spence. I don't judge, but so the Mr. Right. What usually happens is that there's more than one Mr. Right. And what we do is that we talk about here are the qualities that you're looking for. And if you miss the boat on this person, right, that you just keep the trajectory and there's another. So it's still a psychic thing where you're pinging this one person. It's just not that it's pinged to Abraham Lincoln, the 25th. Do you see what I'm saying? So when it comes to that, but I do agree with you that there's this thing, right? So it's almost kind of like an anchor to this thing that's out there. Is that the way that you were talking about it? Does that make sense?
It's like the chords you were talking about and the connections are with also implying that the distance between could be time, not just distance. But then of course you have to ask yourself the question about time. So it's a twisty rabbit hole because time is in many cases just a third dimensional thing too. So does that mean there is only, you know, one future, or does that mean I decided the future, or does it mean I thought it up, or that, you know, it goes deep. But I just know that chord you're talking about for me, that's how I detect future stuff, because I can see things that are pulling, have that echo, you know, or chord.
I totally hear it. Yeah, it's like it's like when you play a guitar string, right? That's the pull, and then you can hear it, or in your case, if you see it. So does anybody? Yeah. So does anybody have any questions about anything? Anything at all?
I have a question. I will sometimes, and it seems to happen only when I'm at the gym, I'll hear a voice that is very fearful and negative, and it will say like, don't get in your car and drive home. You're gonna get in a car accident. Something bad is gonna happen to you. I don't have it any other place than there.
Mm-hmm.
Am I picking up on a spirit, or what's like a torture?
that is not my, now, everybody's going to be different because this is where we go into our own belief system. All right. So in my belief system that I won't say there are no entities or voices that do that, but for you, and actually for anybody here, my belief system is that if it's not cautionary for your safety, well, how can I say this? For you, what I'm going to say is this. I do not believe that it is an entity, and I do not believe that I do not believe it's an energy. I do not believe it's a guide. I do not believe it's any part of your little circle, right? Because in my belief system, these are all the things that keep you safe. Okay, so I believe that you have guides. I believe you have guardian angels. I believe that you have spiritual teachers. Okay, that doesn't mean that there aren't these energies that are around that are of a different vibration that don't come. So for you, that's kind of interesting. See you later, Karen. Thank you.
Bye.
Yeah,
Gonna fix that slime crap down.
okay. So it could be an energy that is around you that when you're open, because when you're running, it's really easy to open up, that you hear this thing, but it's not a person. It is not it's not anybody from your I'll call it your spiritual circle. Okay. To me, what that is when you're open, if you are an anxious person and you're running, then it allows your anxieties to breathe, and you have a choice. You can either release the anxieties or you can have an energy come and meet your anxieties. Again, law of attraction. And this is from my belief system. Does that make sense when I say that? Or not?
I mean, I never otherwise have those thoughts. Like I don't actually think I'm a particularly anxious person in that way. So it feels like something is taking over or interfering.
It could, it's not my, I'll put it to you this way. I don't believe that there is, especially when you're running and doing something that's really good for your body. I really don't believe that that's a time for an energy that is, that doesn't match to come in and meet you. I think that's the best way to explain it. To me, in my belief system, everything is energy matches energy. So when I talk about anxiety, I don't talk about safety anxiety. I just talk about anxiety in general. So just so you know, I run anxious, right? So it's not uncommon for me to have anxious clients. It's not uncommon for me to go clear houses that have anxiety in it, because it's that thing where a law of attraction where like attracts like. So I wouldn't be surprised if this energy comes and that you have an anxiety. It doesn't mean that you have an anxiety about safety. It just means that you have an anxiety and you're open with this anxiety, right? So the thing about anxiety, and then the other thing too is that I'm not an expert on entities. Entities within the body. It's not my belief system, and so I'm not saying that they don't exist, but because it's not in my belief system saying that there are entities that I don't want are within me, I have a hard time working with that. So, but that doesn't mean I don't know people who can help you work with that if that's what it feels like for you. Okay. But for me, it feels like it's almost like it's the same thing, but we just use different language. Right. So for me, it's like you're allowing an anxiety to breathe. And so the anxiety gets to inhale anxiety or gets to exhale and no longer be an anxiety. I think that's the best way to explain it. It's a little bit conceptual, but I think that's the best way to explain it. But go with what feels right for you, because it's again, 1 in 68 trillion, right? Of how people communicate. So if that doesn't feel right for you, then I would help you find somebody that has that vocabulary for you. Right? Okay. Does anybody have any questions at all? Go ahead, Yvonne.
Lori, I listen to Abraham Hicks a lot, and she talks about thought forms. So there could be a thought form that you're running into there.
That's a good thing. So yeah, what I call an energy, a thought form totally makes sense to me.
Yeah, which is also an energy, right?
Yeah. So to me, that's like an energetic dust bunny. I think that's the best way to say it, right? Because it's a thought form that has really nothing on its own, but it's collected enough that it has its own like form. But it's not Voldemort, right?
And if you're kind of like an empath and you're going at the same time every day and you're seeing some of the same people, it also probably find some way to ground yourself so you're not susceptible to the energies that might be like near you in proximity. You know, that this is that's why they closed down gyms first when the pandemic started, is because it's a space of exchange, a lot of people in a small place. So if you're, I don't know, I shouldn't say that. Like just be like put your protection on before you go to those very public, very close, intense energy spaces, because it could be something in the space, you know, like.
And you're also a really sensitive person. So even if it wasn't, I bet you if you were that open that you were in the gym as you were in a grocery store, you would experience that as well. But you're not open in that way, right? The thing that's really cool about running is it's meditative. Swimming, meditative. It can be torturous at the same time, but because of the repetition, it's meditative. And so what happens is that you hit that space, you're open, and then stuff can happen, right? So yeah, so having a protection intention, it could be so many things that you could do, but first let's figure out what feels right for you to what it is, and then we can go ahead and give you the solutions, which of course there's always more than one. All right.
Right.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Yes, Spencer.
I'm just curious on what your thoughts on deja vu are, because it seemed like we were sort of heading in that direction for a second, and
Yeah, for a
also
second.
like for me at least, I feel like I've had deja vus where like I can like see a few seconds ahead of the deja vu and I'm like, oh, this is gonna happen.
Mhm.
But sometimes those things are bad and I don't want them to happen. It doesn't happen, it probably happens like once every couple years, but just what are your thoughts on that as a like deja vu, I guess?
I like to think of it as two things. One is that you're not completely in this dimension. That's one. And the second is that it's more like on the psychic level than it is on the intuitive level, because it is just about an event, right? So that's the thing about deja vu. A lot of kids have deja vu. A lot of teenagers, they have really amazing deja vu as well as psychic abilities because of their openness and everything that's changing. But to me, deja vu is pretty much like what we were talking about, where it's kind of like, I won't call it a manipulation of time, but you can actually do a little thought leap, right? A little leap. And to me, that's more on the psychic level, but it's not complete. It's not that you're in the third dimension. So I'm not saying that it is a psychic thing. It's like a leap, right? But it feels like it's a psychic thing because there's no emotion about it. Does that make sense? I'll give you a quick story. I was 20 years old and I had, my cousin's just a little bit younger than me. We finally had a baby in the family, another cousin. We have a history of twins. So as a joke, my cousin and I were over the crib going, twins, twins, twins. And in that moment, I knew I was having twins, right? So I didn't want it to happen, and that was at 20. So this is many years later. But what had happened is that there's the psychic, the psychic like, in which there was an anchoring that happened, and that there was a knowing, and it was that fast, but it was in the future. Does that make sense? So it's not exactly a psychic thing. It just has a psychic feel to it. And to me, it's kind of like I call it like a dimension jump, or being in between dimensions. Does that make sense? Because you're not really here. So, yeah. Any other questions? No? I am looking at Tana's thing. Tana, I'm gonna address that a little bit later. Is that all right? But I do like that we're talking about dreams because no one ever talks about dreams. And it's one of it's an amazing form of communication. So Tana has talked about her deja vu dreams, or so I will put your deja vu dreams, Tana, similar to prophetic, right? So there's the prophetic type of dreams. If they're not prophetic dreams, they are your intuitive language of symbology. Yeah, and so what's happening is that in your dream state, you are getting a download of information. It's just that the language is just a little bit different, and it's pretty damn amazing. So prophetic dreams or deja vu dreams are just like deja vu at night. I mean, during the day, where they're short and complete. So it's almost like I consider like a snapshot or like a very mini clip, and the whole answer is there. Okay. Someone will say, yeah, I had this prophetic dream that, you know, my sister's going to have a baby. And I said, oh, tell me the dream. And they go, well, first time I was walking down the street and I went, okay, that's symbolic, because it wasn't just one quick snapshot. It wasn't prophetic that way. Makes sense? And then what'll happen is then you go ahead and then you in my world, in the dream state, everything is about you. Everything represents you. And dreams are amazing because they'll talk about stuff that you just don't want to talk about. I wonder why nobody comes to me and talks about dream analysis.
I have to go, Cynthia. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, before you leave, actually what I want to do is I'll close it up in just one moment. But Tana is amazing. I encourage you. She is in the Sexy Edgy Intuition group if you ever want to talk to her about stuff. Also want you to let you know that I'm doing Fifth Dimension mini readings tonight for free to be recorded. And there are 6 spots available. There are 3 at 7. I think there's 2 at 7:20, there's 2 at 7:20, 4 at 7:40. So there's 8 spots, and 2 at 8 o'clock. So if you're interested, let me know. And I'm happy to talk to you about that. I've got a couple of other events coming up that I would love to offer for you besides this at the Fifth Dimension. And thank you, Tana, for bringing up the Fifth Dimension, because it kind of just moves it on over. And Yvonne for bringing that up. But
One last quick question. What are your services? How do we work with you? What's going on? I want it, you know.
You want to know. All right. So here's what I do. I do readings, which is giving you information about where you are in a certain place, help you get to the next level. So if you are thinking about this is where I want to go, I help you move there. I love working with, I call it intuitive edge work, where it's your intuition at work, meaning it's how do you use your intuition in business, how to create better communications with other people, how to create better teamwork by utilizing all of your team instead of just little pieces of your team, and really learning how to propel forward. I also do Fifth Dimension work, which is gallery style. Fifth Dimension is kind of like a standalone because I'm channeling information from another dimension, and you get to ask questions however you want. It is not me in my readings, just like you said, Tana. It is just straight up information. It's like Google with a voice and this sexy face. So that's what Fifth Dimension is. So the things that I have are, Sexy Edgy Intuition, which is how do you shine through with your intuition to create better relationships. And so relationships doesn't always have to be with that special someone, but it could be. It could help you attract that special someone. It could help you decide who that special someone is, who is worthy of you, instead of the other way around. So that's what Sexy Edgy Intuition is about. And then I also have Intuitive Edge classes, which is, again, the business side of it. And I've got all that stuff. But the most, one thing I really want to talk about, because it's near and dear to my heart right now, is I'm doing a 3-series class, and it's called My Mother's Work. And My Mother's Work is about really finding out what your mother was born here to do and how she, from a young person is like how she fucked it up, right? Because no one ever wants to be like their mom, or there's a certain person of their mom, they're like, absolutely no way. But it's really finding out what your mother's work is, because that's actually your lineage or your heritage karmically. And then you, by separating it out, you get to appreciate your mom for the path she had to travel with this responsibility. And then you get to decide if you're going to take it on, and if you do take it on, how you're going to take it on. Does that make sense? So it's actually really lovely, lovely work. Moms have a lot of stuff that they carry. So those are the things that are very important. So Fifth Dimension tonight, if anybody's interested, again, it's a free event. I've got the Intuitive Edge coming up on May 5th, which is just like this, a chat about how to use your intuition at work. I've got another one of these happening on the 8th, if you want to come visit. And then if you want to know about any of the other things, just let me know. Any questions? No? Man, I was hoping to hear about some entities, some, Karen had that. Karen was our person for that, but I was hoping to hear some stuff from you as well. Does anybody have any other questions? Here's what I'm going to tell you. When we do intuitive work, it's super personal. And all I do is I hold space and I guide you, and everything else is all you. So when I hold class, there are 2 rules, and they're amazing rules. The rules are this: number 1, you're always right. Number 2, it's not your body. And we'll discuss more of that when you come to my classes. But by having those 2 rules, it sets you up for success to really acknowledge and work with your intuition. All right. All right. Thank you so very much. Does anybody, I'm happy to give any of that information to you, but I'm also going to download it and send it on out to you guys. Sound good?
I definitely want to take the class. Yeah.
Ah, excellent.
Like all of your teachings, like I'm like, I want you as a teacher.
I'm excited.
What's happening, but
I'm super exciid. I'll connect with you. Actually, what I'll do is I'll connect with you. That's the other thing. I'll send you a quick email, and I'm happy to chat with you guys for 15, 20 minutes to see what is interesting to you and how we can work together, or how I can help you on your way. Make sense? I'll send you quick little, I'll send it to you via Facebook, and then we'll make appointments. How's that sound?
that sounds great.
Sound
I
fab?
have at 7 tonight. Do you have room?
I don't. I have 7:20, 7:40, and 8 o'clock.
Gotcha. I'll get back to you.
All right. Anybody
can
else want to
swap.
come?
I can swap.
You want to swap?
Sure.
Are you sure? Would that be
Yeah,
okay?
absolutely.
Oh, that's super sweet. Thank you.
All right, because you know what that means, Frida. That means you're going to be the vet in the 7:20.
Oh, good.
All right. Okay, Tan, I got you at 7 o'clock.
Awesome. How do we
Okay.
get the link to that? You'll probably send it.
Yeah, I'm going to send the link as soon as I'm done with this chat.
It's not this link, right? They don't do that.
No, it's not this one.
Okay. I'll look.
All right. All right. I'll catch you all later. Thank you so much, and look for me on Facebook. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
I'll move on.